I'm Chris Wallace. Donald Trump attacks John McCain's standing as a war hero. Has he finally crossed the line?
He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured, okay? I hate to tell you.
Now, the Republican field is rushing to pile on Trump. Our Sunday panel weighs in. Searching for a motive in the murder of 4 Marines and a sailor in Tennessee.
Whether it's domestic, international, this, that, it's a terrorism investigation.
What do we know about the gunman and whether he had any links to international terrorists? We'll get the latest from Chattanooga. Plus, President Obama defends his Iran deal and challenges his critics.
Either the issue of Iran obtaining a nuclear weapon is resolved diplomatically, or it's resolved through force, through war. Those are the options.
Now the White House seeks support for the agreement in Congress. The administration is not even talking about Congress actually approving this deal. We'll sit down with the 2 chief negotiators, Secretary of State John Kerry and Energy Secretary Ernest Moniz. And is the Obama administration trying to skirt Congress by sending the deal straight to the United Nations? We'll talk with Senators Ben Cardin and John Barrasso, 2 leading members of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. And Planned Parenthood tries to put out the firestorm over this controversial video.
We've been very good at getting cars on liver because we know that, so I'm not going to crush that part.
We'll ask our Sunday panel what it means for the debate over abortion. All right now on Fox News Sunday. And hello again from Fox News in Washington. We have a lot of news to cover today, the latest on the investigation into that terror attack in Tennessee and the debate over this week's nuclear deal with Iran. But we begin with breaking political news. Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump's comments about Senator John McCain, questioning whether he is a war hero. Senior political correspondent Mike Emanuel reports from Ames, Iowa. Mike.
Chris, Donald Trump dramatically escalated his war of words with Arizona Senator John McCain and created a big new controversy. When panel moderator Frank Luntz called McCain a war hero, Trump seemed to question that.
Frank, let me get to it. He hit me. He's not a war hero. He's a war hero. He's a war hero.
5.5 years.
He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured, okay? I hate to tell you.
Do you agree with that?
He's a war hero because he was captured, okay? You can have, and I believe perhaps he's a war hero, but right now he said some very bad things about a lot of people.
Trump later denied saying McCain isn't a war hero.
If a person's captured, they're a hero as far as I'm concerned, unless they're a traitor like Bergdahl. He was captured. He's no hero.
But Trump also said he thinks McCain has done very little for veterans and he's disappointed in him. As for Trump, he received 4 student deferments from military service from 1964 to 1968 and a medical deferment after college for a bone spur in his foot. His Republican rivals pounced, with former Texas Republican Governor Rick Perry calling it a new low for Trump and saying, quote, his attack on veterans make him unfit to be commander-in-chief of the U.S. Armed Forces, and he should immediately withdraw from the race for president. Former Florida Governor Jeb Bush tweeted, enough with the slanderous attacks. Senator John McCain and all our veterans, particularly POWs, have earned our respect and admiration. And former Republican nominee Mitt Romney tweeted, the difference between John McCain and Donald Trump is Trump shot himself down. Chris?
Mike, thank you. We want to bring our Sunday group on early to discuss the fallout from the latest Trump controversy. Fox News senior political analyst Brit Hume, Julie Pace, who covers the White House for the Associated Press, head of Heritage Action for America Michael Needham, and former Democratic Congresswoman Jane Harman, director of the Woodrow Wilson Center. So, Brit, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 as political Armageddon, how bad is this for Donald Trump?
It's right up there, 7 or 8 anyway. And, you know, the remarks were so crude, ignorant, personal, and completely unnecessary. Politics is about addition. You want people to support you in the party. John McCain is someone the Republican Party nominated for president, 7 years ago. He has a following in the party. Trump ought to want those people to come to him. They won't now. And many people, I I saw a lot yesterday in reaction to this. A lot of Trump fans said, I like Donald Trump, but this is beyond the pale. And I think that reaction will be quite widespread and will be quite damaging. He needs to apologize, and it remains to be seen if he's got sense enough to do that.
And if he does, is that enough?
Well, it'll help. I'm not sure it's enough because it was saying he's not a hero. I mean, does Trump really have any idea of the extent of John McCain's war record, quite apart from being captured? What he did while in captivity, what he refused to do, the things he did before he was captured? I mean, it's just breathtaking that he would.
The fact that he was offered an early release because his father was an admiral and refused to take it because he wanted to keep faith with his fellow prisoners. Michael, I know that John McCain is not too popular with your wing of the Republican Party. I get the emails. He's a rhino. McCain is a Republican in name only. But denigrating his service and his years, 5.5 years in a Vietnamese prison camp, pretty tough to defend.
Oh, it's impossible to defend. John McCain's a war hero. His book, Faith of My Fathers, is an inspiration to read. Donald Trump's a clown. The reason people are attracted to Donald Trump isn't that they agree with what he believes in. This is a guy who believes in socialized medicine. This is a guy who, in past life, supported amnesty. This is a guy who said that he's very pro-choice. People agree with Donald Trump for the same reason Bernie Sanders is getting a following, which is that people are incredibly cynical about the Washington political class. And they look at the same political consultants who have made the Republican Party soulless, who have made the Republican Party intellectually bankrupt, and they say if those guys are setting their hair on fire, Trump might be doing something right. He's not doing something right. He needs to be out of the race. But somebody else who's serious needs to step up and start channeling the voice of very frustrated American political voters.
Let me pick up on that with you, Congresswoman Harman, because you've been around politics for a while. What do you make of the fact that up until this point, Trump had made a lot of comments that a lot of people were offended by, especially about illegal immigrants being rapists and drug dealers? That not only didn't sink him, it rocketed him to the very top. In the latest Fox News poll, he was number one.
Well, I agree that people are fed up with Washington and fed up with politics as usual. But I think Trump is getting exactly what he wants because you're leading with this story on this show instead of leading with Iran, which is the really big story of the week. He's disgraceful. But I do want to make a comment about John McCain, who we've had our small disagreements from time to time. But we basically do agree, and I've been all over the world with him, and he uses his moral authority in very impressive ways. There is no one else like John McCain. He can talk about torture like no one else can. He can talk about why sequestration, this brain-dead idea, is killing our defense budget and new ways to fund defense. So I would say I hope this elevates John McCain's stature, and I hope he doesn't comment at all about this disgraceful act.
Well, it is interesting. We've asked, and everybody has asked for him to make a comment, and he has, up to this point, declined. And I guess that's the old Republican line: when your opponent or enemy is digging a hole, stay out of the way. Julie, what do they think of, and I don't mean just this weekend, what have they made of the Trump phenomenon in the White House? And do they think that whoever the Republican nominee ends up being, assuming it isn't Trump, that his comments, especially about illegal immigrants, are going to hurt whoever that nominee is with Hispanic voters?
Well, remember, this White House has a long history with Donald Trump, going back to the early years of Obama's first term when the birth certificate was the big issue, and the president came out and called Donald Trump a carnival barker and had to actually produce a long-form birth certificate to try to put him off a little bit. I think that the White House and Democrats as a whole right now are happy to see Trump stay in this race as long as he can, because he not only forces other people in the party to respond to him every time he makes one of these comments, but you start to see this be a litmus test. Everyone comes out and quickly pushes back when he makes a comment about John McCain and his military service, but when he made comments about Mexicans and immigrants, you saw more of a mixed reaction. And so they think that this is harmful to whoever the eventual nominee is, and certainly I think Republicans feel that the quicker he gets out of the race, the better it is for the party.
And you know, Britt, whether or not Trump survives, his success, as I say, in the latest Fox poll, he was in first place. I understand it's early on, but doesn't that show that there is, and this is kind of what Michael was saying, a big chunk of the Republican voters who are fed up, if not specifically with the issues he's been talking about, are fed up with politics as usual?
Oh, yeah, that's true. The question is how big a chunk and how many of them would be willing to back a candidate like Donald Trump with all the baggage that he brings. There is certainly a segment of the Republican electorate which is far more angry at Republican leadership in Washington and Jeb Bush and others who are out on the campaign trail than they are the Democrats and President Obama. And my sense is Trump refers to these people as the silent majority. What I would say about them is they're not a majority and they're not silent, and I'm not sure how many of them there are.
And Chris, 64% of Republican voters don't think Republicans have come to Washington and done what they promised they would do. There's a reason for that. Republicans have not come to Washington and done what they promised to do. They've campaigned on repealing Obamacare. We'll see if they're going to do that. They campaigned against rolling back the president's executive amnesty. The Republican Party's not doing what it's
So, Michael, let me ask you a question. Let's say you end up with a Walker or a Rubio or a Bush as the nominee, and Trump runs as an independent. How badly could he damage the Republican candidate?
The problem isn't Donald Trump running as a third party. The problem is that the Republican voters right now are saying, you know what, if the Republican Party is not going to do what we sent them to town, maybe I'll stay home and watch football. Maybe I'll go do a third party. Not necessarily Donald Trump. It'd be somebody more serious. But Republican voters are fed up with an intellectually bankrupt and soulless party, and that's something that the party leaders have to do something about.
All right, panel. Thank you. We'll see you a little bit later in the program. Up next, my interview with Secretary of State John Kerry and Energy Secretary Ernest Moniz about the Iran deal they negotiated. I'll tell you, it gets a little testy.